Organic toxicology. Chaucer was poisoned.
In late medieval Britain, Christianity remained strong. Yet the gyre is clearly widening as evidenced by church practice and the likes of Geoffrey Chaucer, 1343 through 1400. A polymath and the greatest medieval English poet, Chaucer wrote using vernacular Middle English, making his work accessible and therefore popular. He is a bit like a 14th century version of Ernest Hemingway in this sense. What about Chaucer's relationship, though, to the gyre? To start, by the middle of the 14th century when our poet arrived on the scene, the Latinate Western Church, as opposed to Greek-speaking Eastern Orthodox Church, had many achievements to its credit. Much, if not all of it, as a consequence of its analytical dialectical bent and the influence of St. Augustine, Bishop of Hippo, who lived through 354 through 430. These gave rise to a school of thought called scholasticism, from which the university and the natural sciences developed, and in the arts, musical polyphony, and visual perspective evolved, to name a few. Yet, ecclesiastical practice had evolved too, and many or at least enough people believed the church had grown corrupt. Chaucer was one of them. The Canterbury Tales, written between 1386 and 1389, depicts the church as being guilty for a legion of abuses. Because of this, and because his works were popular, many church and public officials considered him to be an enemy. And that probably includes Thomas Arundel, 1353 through 1414, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Terry Jones, one of the members of the comedy troupe Monty Python, actually argues that Geoffrey Chaucer was murdered on the order of Thomas Arundel for criticizing church practices, namely the sale of indulgences. Among the Canterbury Tales, it's the Partner's Tale that critiques this particular practice head-on. In it, 2 of the 3 miscreants are poisoned to death. If Jones is correct that Arundel had Chaucer murdered without being implicated, then it is highly likely it would have been by poisoning too. 2 of the most popular sources of poison in medieval Britain and Europe were Deadly Nightshade, Atropa Belladonna L, and Mandrake, Mandragora officinarum L, both of which contain the organic toxin atropine. Atropine is substituted morphine propionate ester. Now that you have a rough idea of both the dynamic between Chaucer and the powers that be, and Terry Jones' theory that Chaucer was murdered, plus an understanding of both the role of poison and the organic chemistry pertaining to it in the context of late medieval homicide, it's time to get to work. Here are the deliverables of Project A for which you're accountable. 1. Classify each of the 3 reaction types involved in tropic acid synthesis 2, showing the mechanism of each. 2. With respect to the first reaction step, identify another organic chemistry reaction to which it is similar, then compare and contrast the two. 3. View tropic acid synthesis number 2 in the Wikipedia article. The last step is shown to go to completion. Is this true or not, and why? 4. Identify any likely difficulties regarding separation or purification with respect to either the intermediates or the final product. 5. Assuming Yeats' view of history is correct, can we invoke any factors or concepts that we regularly use to describe chemical phenomenon to explain not only why the gyre occurs naturally, but also why it is probably unavoidable?